Certain McLaren models, like the MP4-12C, had some coolant hose clamp issues where the coolant would leak. What they were using was the typical European single or double ear clamps, and they look like this. And these clamps over time released pressure, or they were faulty, or we really don't know what the consensus are of why they failed, but they do. Now, after the MP4-12C has been out running around the roads for over a decade, we know that this is a common and known issue. In my situation, I had a very minor leak and I threw a clamp from Napa Auto Parts on there, and it worked pretty well, got me home, and it solved the issue. So here are 4 of the actual McLaren clamps that I removed from my 12C. So I've already got some practice in, I've already removed some, and I did this using a flathead, which isn't the best way to do it, and that's why we bought the right tool. But after doing some research, there's other alternatives and other better products that you yourself as a DIYer could do. Now in this video, we're gonna talk about the different clamps and which ones I recommend that you get. And then we're going to replace a clamp on camera. We're going to show you how to do it. We bought the special tool to remove these type of clamps, and then we're going to go ahead and tell you what's the ideal way to do it, and then if you're in a rush or in a pinch, the way that you could do it as well to get the problem solved. So let's talk about clamps. So if you go to O'Reilly's Auto Parts or AutoZone, you could get a clamp like this. And if you look at it, it looks like a good clamp, and many cars use these. But if you see it, it just kind of has these kind of openings right here where it ratchets it in, and sometimes these clamps aren't really well made. This one's from Napa. I feel like this one's pretty well made overall, and this is the one I used to get home, and it solved the issues. So if you're in a pinch, getting a normal coolant clamp isn't a big deal. And then you have these type of clamps which aren't adjustable. They're usually made specifically for that hose in that location, and just wanted to show you that we don't have to worry about this. And this is a typical clamp that you'll see on a fuel line, and if you look at the difference, you don't see a lot of the openings here for the ratcheting. Instead, they have a bolt on here and they clamp on it. And the reason why a lot of people like this design is because whenever you go ahead and you lock these down, sometimes you could deform the hose because of these openings. And of course, we have the one that we took off. But if we look over here, this is a high-end clamp, a regular clamp that still has the ratcheting, but instead of it being a metal or just something else, it's got a stamp on here that says stainless steel, and it's got a really well design. And the difference is that a lot of these clamps, they could fail if you over ratchet them or if you over torque them down. And some of these better ones like Gates, they could just withstand a little bit more torque, and they're made out of stainless steel. But this is where we get into the real deal. So these clamps are by Murray, M-U-R-R-A-Y. And if you look inside them, they are not just smooth like this one. They actually have like these rivets here, and what that's designed to do is designed to add a seal. So whenever you lock them down, they add like this double seal here to prevent any fluid. And on top of that, the ratcheting device is in the outside. It never touches the inside, as you could tell. And this is made out of stainless steel, and it's a high torque clamp, meaning that it could take some torque and it's not going to move and it's not going to break or cave in. So these are the clamps that people are using for their McLaren, and you could buy them on eBay, or you could actually go to Thorny, which is a company overseas. And the crazy thing is I ordered the kit that they're selling for $100, and they shipped this really fast, which was really nice. Now Murray does offer these in different types of sizes. I went on their actual website, but they don't offer the smaller size. So Thorny sent me these, which are stainless steel, but they're a different type of brand. They're a Jubilee. These look really well. They also look very high end, and they don't have the ratcheting thing in the inside as well, which makes it a better clamp in my opinion. And it's also a high torque clamp. So now you know a little bit more about clamps, and we're gonna tell you how to install one. We're going to do it on camera, but we also want to tell you what happens if you're in a pinch or if you want to do it the right way. Now let's talk about the right way. If you have a trusted McLaren dealership and you want them to do all this because it's some work, I would recommend that you let them do the job. They know their way around the engine. They do this all the time. This is just an easy job for them and you don't have to worry about it. But if you're like me and you don't have a McLaren dealership by you, or you like to do stuff yourself, the thing that people get wrong with the McLaren is that it's a hard car to work on. It really isn't. Like, as a current certified master technician, I've worked on a lot of vehicles, and this one's actually very DIY mechanic friendly, home mechanic friendly to be exact. Now, if you want to do this job correctly, I recommend you do it when you're flushing the coolant. And the reason why is because in order for you to replace these clamps, the right thing to do is to remove the hose and then put the clamp on it and then put the hose back. But if you were to do that with a car full of coolant, the moment you remove the hose, it would go everywhere. It would make a big disaster. And if you weren't replacing the coolant, well, you're going to end up having to do it at that point in time regardless. Now, if you're on the road, if you're on a road trip and you have a coolant leak, you don't have time to do a coolant flush. And depending on how much coolant you lost, you definitely don't want to do a coolant flush on the road because this stuff is expensive, the blue stuff. Now, I'm gonna be doing it the way that you would be doing it if you're in a pinch. And the reason why is because I am not doing a coolant flush. This car just had a coolant flush and the coolant's very expensive. That's not one of those things you get for cheap. So what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be separating the clamp and then putting it over the hose and then tightening it up. Now, why is that not the correct way to do it? Well, because metal has memory, and even if it's aluminum, stainless steel, regardless, you don't want to flex metal. You don't want to flex metal that has a radius often, or typically you just don't want to do it at all. And the reason why is because when you go back to try to put metal back in a radius, if you flexed it at a certain angle at a certain point, you might have a divot, you might have a crease, and you might have put a mark, or you might have deformed that perfect circle that it came from the factory. Now, I know all of this, but I'm still gonna do it because I'm gonna open up the clamp, put it over the hose, and close it. I've already done it once, it was fine, but again, it's not the correct way to do it. The correct way to do it is to remove the hose, slide the clamp over it, and then put the hose back on. But again, this is how we're gonna do it in the video to demonstrate both the tool and the clamp. All right, let's get started. So this is one of the hoses that leaked on me on the drive home when I got the car. I did a 9-hour drive back home. It was really good, but this kind of scared me. We already have one of Thorny's clamps on there, and if you look at it, it's perfectly fine, but we're gonna go over to the other side and we're gonna show you the identical one that is actually the OEM one, and that's the one we're gonna be removing. All right, so in this situation, I've got a 7mm socket, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and loosen this up. Okay, it's loosened up. And then again, what we talked about that we don't like to do, but we're doing it anyways, is we're gonna open it up, right? Just try to open it up as much as we can, but without going too far. And that's how I'm opening it up. Again, this isn't the best way to do it, but this is the way to do it if you're in a pinch and you don't want coolant everywhere. Now, being careful you don't hurt the hose with the pointy end, we're gonna go ahead and just slide it over. And then we're gonna go ahead and close it down again, right? And using my strength, I'm gonna try to close it down as much as I can to get that memory back. And then I'm gonna get my tool and I'm gonna get it started. Okay, now while I have the clamp, I'm gonna go ahead and pinch it, and then I'm gonna slowly start ratcheting it in so it can get back into the clamp where I could ratchet it down. Okay, now the reason why I have the clamp this direction is because if I had it facing down, you couldn't ratchet it. If I had it facing the other way, that could work, but when you were pinching it, it would be awkward. So that's why I have the clamp mechanism facing out in this direction. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I have it pretty much started, and I'm gonna loosen it up a little bit more just so I can get over this hump. And I'm gonna get a rag and put it underneath here, because when I clip this, it could leak. Now, this is the specific tool designed for these clamps, but you have to make sure that you get the removal tool because the install tool is different. All right, so we got our tool and we're gonna go across the ear of the clamp. and we're going to try to cut it. All right. I think I got a little bit of it, but let's see if we could. All right, boom, just like that. Now that we cut it carefully without hurting ourselves, we're gonna go ahead and pry it off of our hose. Now we're gonna slide over our new clamp. All right, once we got our clamp in the right position with our ratchet, we're gonna go ahead and start tightening down. But there's a kind of a note here. You want to position the clamp kind of where the original clamp was at. There's gonna be an indentation, you're gonna feel it, and then you're just gonna kind of keep your clamp there positioned, and we're gonna start tightening it down. You don't want to go super tight, you just want to feel nice, snug, and stop. And that's it. So we did learn something. You have to use this tool at a kind of diagonal and get the ears like this. It's kind of funky, you'll get it. There's instructions in the back of the tool. I thought that you had to go over it, but I learned that myself. So now you saw how to replace the clamp. You know the right way, the wrong way. You know about the different clamps. I'm gonna put links in the description. I'm gonna put a link for the tool that I have right here. Make sure you read the instructions in the back because I didn't and I kind of was using it wrong. And then on top of that, you're gonna wanna look where you could get the clamps at, and that's from Thorny overseas, and they ship them pretty quickly, and I think it's a good price. You could buy some of these on eBay, but they're kind of hard to figure out because their numbers are a little bit cryptic. You could do all that math and find out all the dimensions, but their kit is pretty easy. And besides that, if you're like me, just slowly replace your clamps as you go. Some of them are gonna be a lot harder than the others, but if you're doing your oil change and you're looking around and you can see a clamp that you could change out, once you have them, you could do them, and sooner or later you'll get them all replaced. But if you decide not to do them, take them to your dealership. At least you know how to replace a clamp if you're on the road or if you run into a situation, or at least now you're armed with that knowledge to be a better and more informed McLaren owner. All right, guys, thanks for watching. You take care, stay safe, and thank you for watching.